It can't be bargained with. It can't be reasoned with. It doesn't feel pity or remorse or fear. And it absolutely will not stop. Ever. Until you are dead.
DC Comics February solicitations are in. There's one thing that stands out above everything else. Writer Brian Michael Bendis' influence and power at DC Comics is growing by the month. He's credited for writing a whopping 7 new releases. Wonder Comics Imprint, which he is basically the creative director of, is releasing 3 more comics he's not writing, but has control over. So that's 10 comics he's directly responsible for. That doesn't even count the writers and other creative talents he's brought to DC Comics like Matt Fraction, Kelly Sue DeConnick, and Cena Grays. When February's new DC Comics release, Bendis will be writing or have direct control over 10 of the 72 new comics DC releases, by my count. Bendis will be responsible for the production of 14% of all new DC Comics. That number is ridiculous for any writer, let alone one who is failing as miserably at producing competent comic stories as Brian Michael Bendis is. I've heard of failing upwards, but at this rate, he's going to own DC Comics outright before 2020 is over. I'll admit, initial sales for Man of Steel, Superman, and Action Comics were very solid when he arrived in 2018, but the numbers plummeted ever since people read the first couple issues. Event Leviathan featured Batman and Superman front and center. Issue 5 shipped a measly 45,000 copies. That was a damn Superman and Batman event book. Not to mention just how god-awful the story is. I haven't talked to one person who made it all the way through Event Leviathan and doesn't regret it. His Jinx World comics, arguably the only thing DC should be allowing him to write, don't even ship 10,000 copies an issue. Brian Michael Bendis is a plague on DC Comics, and the infection is spreading. Case in point, in February, Amy Reeder, a former writer of Marvel's Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, launches an Amethyst miniseries directly from the pages of Bendis' Young Justice series. I wonder why DC Comics would be interested in hiring the writer of one of the worst-selling ongoing series for Marvel Comics. It's clear that Bendis' pipeline is still open for business despite his growing list of failures at DC Comics. There's a reason Marvel Comics improved the moment he left, and DC Comics have been on steady decline since he arrived, yet somehow he's directly responsible for 14% of all DC Comics in February. You can't make this stuff up, people! Just for good measure, Bendis is responsible for 3 of DC's 9 new #1 comics, 33%, ridiculous. Of DC's 9 debut issues, Tom Taylor's deceased sequel, Unkillables, is most definitely the most important, and the one DC readers are most likely looking forward to. I personally tried to read Deceased and didn't like the art, but word of mouth for Deceased is so good I'll probably read it before Unkillables launches. Quite frankly, I'm shocked it's taking DC so long to get this series in production, likely moving a ton of units in February. New Batman writer James Tynion is writing one of the short stories in DC's Valentine's Day special, Crimes of Passion. I made a video regarding my thoughts on the cover featuring Batman walking on Catwoman cheating on him with Nightwing. I'll pass. Finally, the Green Lantern Season 2 launches with a #1 issue, despite featuring the exact same creative team and seemingly picking up where the Green Lantern #12 left off. How marvelous of DC Comics. They're now treating Grant Morrison like he's Mark Waid or Dan Slott. Collectors who purchase all 9 #1 comics will fork out $50. Batman readers have a full slate of 18 new comics starring The Dark Knight and associated heroes and villains. Fans excited for Tony Daniel's full-time return to Batman are in for a major disappointment. Veteran Batman artist Guillaume March is illustrating both Batman 88 and 89. Batman is investigating 4 suspects to determine who hired Deathstroke. At least it sounds like he's doing detective work. I don't normally buy comics just for the cover, but if I did, I would absolutely be all over Detective Comics 1020's cardstock variant from Liber Mijo. It looks amazing. The interior art is also from Brad Walker, so the entire comic should look like $1 million. Batwoman finally discovers what happened to Terry McGinnis in Batman Beyond. Other than that, not a whole lot else happening in Batman comics. Some of the books are dealing with the after effects of City of Bane, while others are still knee-deep in Year of the Villain. Amanda Conner and Jimmy Palmiotti return to write DC Black Label's Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey. The Solicits states, the foul-mouthed, no-holds-barred sequel to one of DC's raciest runs. I somehow doubt that. If that's what DC really wanted, they wouldn't have canceled Brian Azzarello's Birds of Prey series. I bet it says a Q word, and that's about it. Fans of the Caped Crusader will shell out 84 big ones for all 18 Batman-related comics. Readers who only collect comics starring the world's greatest detective himself spent $38 on 9 comics. The Superman slate seems to be expanding in February with 11 Supes-related comics. I think Bendis might have wrote the solicitation for Batman number 20. Mongo will destroy the United Planets and Superman with it, and he said something about using Earth as his toilet, which doesn't sound very nice. The return of one of Superman's biggest and baddest villains, bigger and badder than ever. Sounds delightful. Fresh off the completion of one of the lamest event books in history, Leviathan is front and center in Action Comics. Issue 1020 is illustrated by John Romita Jr. Definitely not looking forward to reviewing this one. Finally, the whole team destroying DC's Superman lineup unite for the aptly named Superman Villains number 1. Bendis, Fraction, Greg Rucka, and Jody Hauser all contribute to the $6 one-shot. The entire lineup of 11 comics related to the last son of Krypton cost readers $51. Justice League releases 4 comics in February. Justice League and Justice League Dark feature new creative teams, and I am all in on both of them. Robert Venditti follows up Scott Snyder's highly successful run on DC's premier team of heroes. Justice League 40 and 41 are illustrated by industry greats Doug Mahnke and Aaron Lopresti. The first Justice League story arc, following Justice League Doom War, features a team of Supermen led by the Eradicator. I released a video of my thoughts on the new creative team yesterday with my good friend Dylan from The Real Comic Book Gamer. Check it out if you haven't already. Ram V is the new writer for Justice League Dark. This is low-key one of the best creative changes I could have imagined. Ram's These Savage Shores is one of the best horror comics I've ever read. Pair that with a special appearance from Animal Man, and Justice League Dark number 20 is must-read in my opinion. All 4 Justice League-related comics cost a tidy $16. DC Comics adult imprint Black Label releases 16 new comics total. 4 comics are being released in Prestige Plus format, including Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey number 1, Joker Harley Criminal Sanity number 3, Joker Killer Smile number 3, and Wonder Woman Dead Earth number 2. I'm personally looking forward to The Last God number 3. The Sandman universe releases 5 comics for $20 total. Joe Hill's Hill House Comics also released 5 comics for $20, including The Plunge number 1 from Hill himself. Young Animal only releases 1 new comic in February. Far Sector readers are on the hook for $4. Black Label completionists will shell out $75 for the 16 new comics. Fans still on the Year of the Villain bandwagon have 4 new comics to look forward to. Actually, it's probably more, because apparently Leviathan and the Legion of Doom have teamed up. I think Action Comics might technically be Year of the Villain related, but I'm not really sure. DC stopped advertising tie-ins a couple months back. Whatever. Lex Luthor seeks out Batman and Joker to learn how the Batman Who Laughs thinks in Year of the Villain Hell Arisen number 3. General Zod, Ra's al Ghul, and the Bottled City of Kandor play heavily into the story in Batman Superman number 7. Hawkgirl hunts down Sky Tyrant, the infected version of Carter Hall, in Hawkman number 21. Finally, Wonder Woman tries to save Kara from her infection in Supergirl 39. These 4 Year of the Villain related comics cost $17 total. Flash 750 should probably have opened the video. DC put together an amazing creative team on the milestone comic, including Joshua Williamson, Jeff Johns, Francis Manupal, Rafa Sandoval, Steven Segovia, David Marquez, and many more. Flash 750 is the beginning of Flash Age. I personally dropped Flash during the Force Quest story following Flash Wars, but I will be buying Flash 750 for $8, and if it's cool, I'll probably ride Flash out until 5G starts. Flash Forward concludes in February. Wally West is presented with a choice: save the day or save his wife and children. I hope he saves his family. DC celebrates Tom King's pointless killing of Alfred in Batman Pennyworth, R.I.P. James Tynion and Peter J. Tomasi write the $5 one-shot. And this isn't the only cash grab DC is exploiting Alfred's death for. I'll cover that in the graphic novels section. Brian Michael Bendis and Alex Maleev unite for Leviathan Dawn. I'm honestly not surprised DC and Bendis are doubling down on the character Bendis just introduced to the DC Universe in such miserable fashion. It's kind of what they do now. DC are releasing 2 facsimile editions. Gardner Fox's The Flash 123 introduced the concept of the multiverse to the DC Universe. John Broom's Green Lantern #1 introduced the world to my favorite DC hero, Hal Jordan. Needless to say, I'll be buying both of these. DC are releasing $8 comics including Batman 386, the debut of Black Mask, Batman Shadow of the Bat #1, Batman 567, first appearance of Cassandra Cain, Jeff Johns Classics, Green Lantern Rebirth #1 and Flash Rebirth #1, the new Teen Titans #2, debut of Deathstroke, Amethyst #1, and Mike Barron's Flash #1 featuring the debut of Wally West as the Scarlet Speedster. I'm probably buying all of these except Amethyst. All 10 vintage comic reprints cost $16 total. My DC Comics February pull includes Flash 750, The Last God #3, Justice League 40 and 41, Justice League Dark 20, Batman Curse of the White Knight #7, both facsimile editions, and 7 of the DC Dollar comics. My entire pull will run me a total of $44, which isn't bad because Marvel is killing me with all the X-Men content. DC are releasing 3 graphic novels I want to mention before I wrap this up. Batman Alfred Pennyworth trade collects the greatest stories in the character's 75 history following Tom King's City of Bane Code Red. The collection includes Alfred's debut in Batman 16 and stories from 17 comics in total. The 248-page cash grab runs $20. Just Imagine Stan Lee creating the DC Universe Book 1 trade paperback collects one of the oddest sets of stories ever told. Stan Lee's reimagining of the DC Universe in 2001. The 352-page, $35 book collects the Legends' take on Batman, Superman, Flash, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, and the Justice League. The book also features a who's who of amazing artists like Dave Gibbons, Jerry Ordway, Jim Lee, Joe Kubert, and more. I recently read Chuck Dixon's Robin Year 1 trade on digital. I'm ecstatic that I'll finally be able to get my hands on a physical copy. If you're a fan of Dick Grayson, this is a must-have story for your personal comic library. The comic also features one of my favorite portrayals of Alfred as he tries to steer young Dick Grayson on a divergent path from Bruce Wayne. That concludes my rundown of DC Comics February solicitations. The Bendis Effect is never ending. He's rapidly failing his way up the DC ladder. Flash 750 looks like an amazing collection of creators, and I'm very excited to read the beginning of Flash Age. I'm honestly pretty disappointed Tony Daniel isn't on Batman long term, and this strengthens my feeling that Tynion won't be writing Batman in 2021. I think most of these new creative teams will be very short-lived, but I'm excited enough to read Robert Venditti's Justice League and Ram V's Justice League Dark to jump on knowing their runs are likely to be very, very short. What comics are you reading in February? Let me know in the comment section. And be on the lookout for my Marvel solicitations video that should be dropping on Friday. And new comic reviews starting tonight. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.